everybody that's on the call this morning. I know a lot of people have been anticipating this talk. I mean, certainly I have. It's quite an exciting one. And I mean, the reason it's so exciting, right, is we're all aware and we all know, like, ChatGPT kind of launched late 2022, right? And it awakened this world of transformative potential when it comes to AI. And this technology is extremely powerful. I mean, I'm sure everybody on the call here has probably used ChatGPT at some point or another. And the underpinning technology for this chatbot, I mean, it's really given us big bounds and leaps in terms of changing the history around AI. So rather than just analyzing or classifying existing data, ChatGPT, generative AI has been able to actually create something new, like images, audio, video, synthetic data, and a lot more. So Roberto is going to be giving us a bit of insights around ChatGPT. I'm certainly excited about that. And one of the reasons it's also exciting, or you should be interested in this as an organization, as a business, is according to the IDC surveys, right? 67% of organizations globally have already adopted or plan to adopt artificial intelligence. And many of these adopters have seen returns that meet or exceed their expectations. So it's definitely something that you should be considering implementing if you haven't already. And if you have, I'm sure you guys can have stories that you can tell us around the successes that you've seen around this. I can't think of anyone that's better to come and share some of these insights around generative AI than Roberto Ferro. So Roberto Ferro is proudly a DVT team member. He actually heads up the AI and blockchain practice. He's been doing DVT for quite a while and has had quite an awesome journey, from being a developer, so very capable and technical as a developer, to actually heading up a whole practice in a very short space of time. That actually says a lot about Roberto in terms of the brains that he has, in terms of the capabilities that he has. I promise you, he's not a bot. He's not some generative AI. He is a real person. And that smile is not fake at all, that beautiful smile. But Roberto is really excited to share some insights with you guys this morning. I'm certainly excited to hear what Roberto is going to share. And I think, Karen, at the end, we will have time for questions, right? So if you do have a burning question, maybe something that Roberto does mention during his talk, you can make a note of it or just post it in the chat. And then what we can do is we can consolidate all of the questions right at the end, and then we can read out some of them. And Roberto will be more than happy to answer some of your questions at the end. I'm not going to waste any more of Roberto's time. So Roberto, whenever you're ready, I think I do take it away.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lorato, for such a fantastic introduction. And yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Roberto Ferro. As Lorato mentioned, I head up the AI and blockchain practice for DVT. As you guys all know, we have to talk about generative AI and its uses for customer and operational use cases. So yeah, let's take it away. This is going to be the agenda. I'm just going to give a very brief introduction, kind of set the scene. After that, we're going to go into some insights. I do think how you approach and think about the technology is very helpful. It'll help you think of things differently. It'll help you uncover better use cases. It's more around teaching someone how to fish, than giving them the answers, right? From there, we'll go into some really cool customer use cases. I'm really passionate about the customer use cases. So yeah, and then after we've delved into quite a broad spectrum of customer use cases, we'll go into operational stuff. Then I'll give you a nice little summary, and then we'll just field some questions. Okay, cool. So introduction. This is ChatGPT. For those who don't know somehow, it's a bot, that's backed by large language model technology. You could basically ask it a prompt, in this particular case, it's saying, hey, can you provide me 3 emails that would explain ChatGPT to somebody? So its ability to, be prompted with stuff and its ability to generate new content is really special and really unique. And so there's a lot of hype around this technology, but it really is merited to some sort of extent. This comes out straight out of the McKinsey report. So, McKinsey's gone and done their research, and they've discovered 63 use cases. And some of them were there, some of them weren't there, some of them were a little bit fluffy. But for the most part, it looks to add a lot of value. There's all these reports that always go around whenever technology comes out. Blockchain was one of them. But there are some really good advantages of adopting this technology. I've heard a lot of people say that it's a solution in search for a problem, and sometimes that does happen. With blockchain stuff, that also did happen to some extent. With ChatGPT or the large language model technology, powered by many, providers at this stage, not just OpenAI. It really does start getting you thinking, well, what can I solve with this? What can I use this in my business as a competitive advantage? What should I use it for? But my biggest thing is to try and give you some insights on how to think about the technology and how to approach the problem. Okay. And so without any further ado, we're going to hop into insights. Now, the biggest thing I want to, instill in this sort of session are 3 insights, right? The first insight is probably going to be the biggest one. It's going to be a little bit abstract in the beginning, but we're going to use some examples to really get those juices going. The biggest use case that has come out of, large language models and generative AI is the ability to talk to a document. Within a corporate setting, this becomes a big deal. If you wanted to know the company's policy on leave, on, your side businesses, all that sort of stuff, reading a 10-page document becomes, quite tedious, quite difficult. You just want an answer, right? Because documents are backed by text and large language models work very well with text, being able to ask a question and get an answer of a large body of text is a primary use case, right? Now, where things are going to get a little bit interesting is this model of having text and asking, a question of this body of text and getting an answer doesn't just sit with a document. They could literally sit with anything, okay, that can be represented by text, and you can ask a question of that. So if you have a laptop and you want to start asking certain questions of it, so long as the text that represents this laptop, okay, has an answer, or even if it doesn't have an answer, there's uses in that, but you can start asking questions of this laptop, okay? So how long does it take to charge, what are its specifications, so on and so forth. Okay, so technical stuff, you can ask questions of technical stuff. You can also move through to other types of products, so is this cream good for me? Is it vegan friendly? Are there any, stuff inside of this cream that could cause allergies? So all of a sudden you start, taking this thing and if in a database somewhere there's this body of text that describes the good stuff about the product, the bad stuff about the product, or, certain risks associated with the product, you can start asking, and the bots, the large language models can take this text, take your question and attempt to try and answer it, right? And we can keep going down the line, all the way through to clothing, all the way through to real estate, tell me about this area, tell me about this house. Is this house best suited for A, B, C, D, E, F, G? You can even go a lot more abstract to things that aren't necessarily tangible. Okay, so take Reading. Reading's an area in the United Kingdom. And so long as there's text, you can ask things of it. Okay, so if there's a bot sitting somewhere on a website, and it allows you to speak to it. So a real estate website, you can see very quickly, it can start telling you things about Reading that you probably didn't know. It's a tech hub. You can ask what businesses are in this tech hub. You can ask about festivals. So it's not just physical stuff, but it could be almost, things that don't necessarily exist or things you can't touch. A nice, interesting use case, video stuff, media. Who are the actors and murders in the building? What's the premise of this sort of piece of content? So from here, the biggest and most important insight is that if it exists and text can describe it, you can prompt it for an answer. Now, this is very powerful. So as you sit, look around your room, there are many things that you can look at that you could have possibly asked a question of, okay? And so the first insight really does take this idea of talking to a document and really broadens your scope to a lot larger. It's not just a document, but it's anything backed by text. Okay, insight number 2. My colleagues worry about me. They say I look very angry and very serious on calls, which has eluded me to start researching web cameras. And so, in this day and age, we are spoiled for choice. There aren't 5 products. There are many, many different types of products. And as a person, you want the best product for your problem, okay? And so we do the usual stuff. We'll hop onto Google and we'll say, hey, Google, what are the best webcams? Of course, we have wonderfully sponsored content. The first 3 links, they are sponsored. So there's a bit of bias. Most people tend to skip those as you go along. You'll then go into this other website, the next first website, and you'll see they're recommending the Logitech C920. They'll give you its reasons why they think it's good for you, okay? They don't really know your problem all too well, but they've gone and they've done their tests, and this is what they are saying, okay? And after you hop into this website and, sidestep all the different ads, you kind of get to the content that you're kind of looking for. But because you're very studious, you go to the next website, and then you get a little bit more confused because the first website's recommendation is nowhere near nowhere near recommended on the second website. So now it's a lot more work. You've got to go see, well, what's the story with this Dell, and why is this Dell any better? If you're very committed to the cause and you want to get, the best bang for your buck, you find yourself on YouTube and you'll go find a nice influencer or whoever they are, a nice YouTuber, and they'll start explaining why this one's better than that one and all the micro nuances of all these different things. But it still leaves you with this question of, which one is good for me? After an exceptionally long time, you will finally make your decision after doing all your research. You'll go into a platform like Amazon and you will go and purchase the product, okay? Now, here's the big thing. Google was very, very good at finding information, okay? So if you asked and you gave it certain keywords, based on those keywords, it was going to go and find that information for you, bring you back results that were probably relevant to what you've searched for. Now, this was a big deal. So before the internet, the ability to access and get that information on hand was very powerful, okay? But the thing with Google is it doesn't really interpret it, okay? It just shows you stuff. It uses keywords and it shows you content that might most likely be relevant to what you are searching for, okay? But it still requires you to go research. It still requires you to go and understand everything, synthesize it, put it all together, and then make an educated decision based off of that. And this requires a lot of effort for anybody who does go down these sorts of exercises. Okay, but what people want is they want a solution for them, not a solution or a piece of content that was just put together for the masses. They want a solution that's unique to them, not just a blogger or a website or all these other funny biased sorts of places. They just want to, have their problem solved, which then brings us to the next point, okay? People want to go from problem to solution as quickly as possible with the least amount of friction possible, okay? That's what ChatGPT has done so well, because you could ask it and, give it a prompt and it could give you an answer, and that was extremely powerful, okay? That in-between bit that you have to do with Google with all the researching definitely leaves you, okay? And so people want this problem solution, okay? And what you really want to do is you want to go into a world like this, where you want to say, hey, please provide me with a high quality web camera for work. The cost mustn't exceed a certain amount. It must be compatible with my computer, ideally, and then this person goes on to state that they're a software developer, who might make online tutorials further down the line. They mention some interesting stuff. They say, hey, can you recommend stuff with a good warranty period? And then they say, just chop down the results to 3 results, right? And then list any cons, which is a big deal. You see why it's good sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily tell you why it's bad, okay? And then what you can do in the future, probably if Amazon decides to, you can go into something that will look like this, and you can say, hey, here's my prompt, give me an answer. And you can do this in ChatGPT right now, okay? The problem is that the data is based off of 2021 data, and it's not, updated with the latest and greatest. But here's something that is quite exceptional. ChatGPT can take your prompt, okay, or large language models can take your prompt, okay, search and take all the, all the web cameras and all the text that describes and explains this web camera, take it and synthesize it and provide it a result that is, suited for you. Okay, now this is a very big deal, it knows certain stuff about the problem statement, so it can take the stuff about this product and show why it works for you. This is huge in retail. It'll probably lead to less returns, it'll help you understand things quicker, better, and faster, okay? because it's tailored towards you and your problem statement and why it fits and solves your problem uniquely. Okay, that sort of hyper personalization isn't something that's been achieved thus far. Okay, what's also very interesting about this is people leave reviews. Okay, and you'll see, rather on purpose for this example, is that I said that I was a software developer. The person prompted and said that they were a software developer. You know, the more information we acquire by people who are constantly writing reviews, and the more we get to understand them better, we can start saying, hey, you know, people similar to you had these things to say about the product. Why is this important? Because you're more likely to buy, okay, a certain product based on what people similar to you say about it. Whatever that association is, it could be your job, it could be your geography. But for the most part, in this particular setting, understanding that you're a software developer, okay, and being able to provide and sift through reviews and give you a summary of what other people have to say is a very big deal. You know, a lot of the times with reviews now, you know, if there's thousands of reviews, you've got to go through it, you've got to go read it, you've got to go and understand it. Once again, more cognitive load, and that's not what people want. Okay. So insight number 2, it's fairly simple. People want to prompt with a problem. They don't want to search for a solution. Okay, they want to give you a problem, they want to get an answer, and that's about that. Okay. Now, insight number 3. Now, this is a very big one. Okay. When I went onto Amazon, you know, to go search for my Logitech C920, that's all they kind of got. Okay, so Amazon's very good at tracking your clicks and what you click on, and they can sort of extrapolate what you may or may not sort of want, but you never explicitly tell them things. Okay, but as we move into a world where we are prompting for things, there's certain things I have typed, okay, into this platform that can give Amazon a lot more interesting information. You know, they now know that I have a MacBook Pro, whereas before they didn't know that. They now explicitly know that I'm a software developer. They know further down the line that, you know, I might be making tutorial videos and I'll probably need a ring light of sorts or a better microphone of sorts. That's very, you know, important to them. That's something that a search wouldn't have given that to them. Okay, Google typically would sometimes pick up some of this stuff, but I don't know how much of, you know, Amazon would pick up. Okay, and then the next thing is it starts talking to me as a person. I mentioned a long warranty period. Well, in the future, if they do recommend products, they can start building my profile a lot better and saying, you know, this person values quality over a long period of time. So maybe we should start filtering our results based on that. So that personalization becomes very key. But because I've given you so much more information, we can store these prompts in databases, obviously, and we can start getting insights around it. So it's one thing to change the user experience, but on the other side of that is, you know, what insights can we gather from that? Because we've got more information, we can obviously gather more insights. And it could be many things, all the way through from product development. So if many people start asking for certain stuff, or in reviews they start saying, you know, certain things about the product, it could lead to better products. If people are asking odd questions about a certain feature on a product, well, I mean, you could update your marketing in real time, okay? Or it could advise future product development. But if you know, a car or your phone does have these sorts of features and people are asking the question, you could update your social medias almost in real time based off of that, okay? It could lead to new business. If people keep bringing in and asking certain insights, this is actually, you know, something that could result off of the back of those insights. It could also highlight operational issues. But in short, having all this information, having more information can lead to better insights, okay? And this is a big deal. So during World War II, there were planes that came back and they saw bullet holes in the planes, okay? And more to the point around this is that I think in our traditional channels, you know, social media, our websites, the ability to ask a question of a company or a product and get an almost real-time answer is actually very low. You know, it's generally a person who tends to field this, or it's an FAQ that tends to field this. So I suspect that there are a lot of questions that aren't actually answered. Okay, or not, they're not even asked, and so they can't be answered. And so much like the World War II planes that came back, everybody looked at the results that they got, but they didn't ask the questions of, well, what happened to the planes that didn't come back, you know? And so what are people currently asking that you aren't capturing and answering? You know, how have you removed that friction to get people to start answering those sorts of questions? Okay, so it becomes a very interesting ball game as it starts to shift the ability to, you know, remove the friction and provide answers and questions and answers very quickly might lead to some very interesting things for businesses. And so the third and final insight is with more information, okay, it'll mean better insights, okay, going forward. This is a fairly big deal, okay? And so that's what we have, the 3 insights. Now, I'm going to go into customer use cases, okay? The first use case is fairly simple, very similar to the webcam one, but we'll build upon that. In this use case, it's somebody who's a UX designer, and they want certain stuff off a laptop, okay? They say there that they use Figma, they use Adobe Illustrator, you know, they give a certain, you know, price threshold. And then once again, as shown with the webcam, it can take the information that it knows about a MacBook and explain it to this person and how this product can solve their problems, okay? Off at the back of this, because we know you're a UX designer, and other people similar to you have bought products from us before, we can start cross-selling and recommending things, okay? But you can start cross-selling and recommending in a very, you know, specialized sort of way. So if you have a magic mouse, it could work very well for Figma and design work, okay? Here's the reviews that other people had to say about a magic mouse, okay? So the ability to cross-sell starts to pick up significantly. Why? Because we just purely have more information about you, okay? Here's a similar thing, and it just shows you the power of this. In this sort of example, this person was an was an animator, okay, and he does a lot of video editing sort of work. It's the same product, okay, but it's now its pros and cons vary based on the person's profile, and it gets explained to them why this product is good for them, why this product is maybe not so good for them. And that's a very big deal because when you go to the website now, currently, even at Apple, okay, it just tells you about the product. You still have to do the thinking as to why you should get this for you. Okay, this thing over here will explain why it's good for you. Okay, and I think that's something quite special. Okay, for anyone who's gone shopping recently, we'll be going to a wedding, you know, and next month. And so you've got to go find in this particular prompt, it provides my age. It says that we're going to a wedding, and then my wife will be wearing green. I then need to, you know, I want to, you know, dress for the occasion and match her and all that sort of stuff. But typically how this looks is you've got to go onto Pinterest and you've got to go search, and then you've got to go onto all these different websites and you've got to go click away. And I don't really want that, okay? So within a fashion sort of sense, being able to, you know, be prompted and be given an answer and shown, hey, go buy this here, go buy this there, you know, or on our website, this is what we're recommending you buy, you know, given your problem statement is a very big deal. This experience is phenomenal. From a user experience perspective, any person in a retail setting, being able to do something like this will change the game. You know, it can also help identify trends. So if all of a sudden you see more people buying our clothes, you see Woolworths and any large retailer, you know, from, let's say, a fashion sense, don't know why you're buying it, okay? That's a very big deal. They just know that you bought it. They don't know what you're going to use it for. But knowing that maybe things are, you know, it's going to be used for a wedding, these sorts of insights could help guide the business going forward, you know, could help identify trends. It could even be something very simple where I say, hey, I don't like the white shirt, please remove it. And then you can start following up saying, well, why don't you like it? What's the reason for it? Okay. You can start conversing to understand, and it almost does not necessarily user testing in mass, but it starts to understand, you know, the customer better and why they would or would not like a particular item, you know, could be all the things to maybe it's an awkward color, or it doesn't fit the current wardrobe and they want something that if they invest in and buy now, it moves through into the future, and they can wear it again. It could just simply be that it's too expensive and the person doesn't think that it's worth it. But this is huge for businesses, right? Understanding why things are bought and not bought is very helpful. As you've all seen on those fashion sales at the end of the month, there's the same shirt that's there that nobody has bought, you know, but what was the reason for it? Okay, fashion retailers could maybe extrapolate and say it's, you know, the taste. People just don't like it. But it could be for many other reasons that they just simply do not know about. Okay. once again, this opens us up to some interesting sort of insights. So before, fashion buyers are looking at certain products, they can really start opening up the conversation. So because we can ask questions of these bots and mechanisms powered by large language models, it can ask us questions back. Okay, so it can say, hey, what do you think of this dress? What are your thoughts? We've kind of like looked at our markets and our business, and we think this dress would work quite well for you. Okay. Now this is huge. The person can respond and say, oh, it's lovely, it's great. What fabric is it? And start asking questions of it. So now we know fabric matters. It's something that's important. How thick is it? If it's a dress, could possibly be see-through, all those sorts of things start to matter, and it starts to advise the business, right? You could also move into a pre-sales mode. Okay, so hey, why don't you pre-buy this dress? You can get a 10% discount, but that's big for a business. That starts to affect cash flows. That starts to gauge demand. So there's a lot of these sorts of interactions that you can start having with your customers, and that could really start pushing the business in the right sort of directions. Okay, and frankly, from a retail perspective, this will change the world forever. You could almost ask a question of anything, from something as silly as dog bones for your pet, all the way through to hiking shoes. Okay, it really, all the bristles on a makeup brush, whatever it is you want to know, you can ask for it and get an answer, fairly quickly, which is something that just hasn't been achieved before. Okay. Alrighty, so that's retail. The next one will be travel. Travel is hyper competitive with lots of, people playing in that space, playing in the hotel space, playing in the, the well, not courses, but the stuff to do on holiday, the itinerary space. Sorry. And being able, if anybody has, been lucky enough to go and travel, putting these itineraries together become, very tricky, very intricate. Where to go, when, what to go see, and once again, you're almost overloaded with all this information, right? You almost want to take the thinking out of it, and that's why travel agents are there. You just say, hey, take this holiday thing and figure it out. So I don't want to work more for my holiday, but being able to type something as simple as this, saying you're going to London from this day to this date, these are your preferences, this is what you like, get me going on an itinerary, is a big deal. That experience is exceptional, right? If you're mining the insights here, okay, you could probably start getting smarter and start saying, well, hey, we noticed people really like this whole Harry Potter war thing. Should we, as a travel agency, start offering packages? Maybe we get hold of these people and say, hey, let's negotiate a better rate. Okay. Let's like maybe make this tailor-made package that nobody else can compete with. Okay, that's huge. Why? Because you're just getting the information, mining the insights, and providing a better service to your customers, right? Giving them what they want for them. Okay. So yeah, it could add, move to new product developments, give you significant competitive advantages. And it could also lead to working the whole value chain, so this over here just talks to itineraries, but it could also be all the way from the start of a holiday, from flights through to, taxi travel to the location, the accommodation, what to do on that holiday, and all the way travel back. So the power of this is going to be a very big deal within the travel industry, or one of the many industries. Okay, so that's travel. The next one, my favorite, media. For some other strange reason, it's become a thing. People will be watching something on TV, but will have their phones out. Okay, and in this particular example, we're watching Buffy today. So while you're sitting on TV watching stuff, if the account that is on the TV is the same one that's on your phone, I kind of know what you're watching. Okay, and for some other strange reason, whenever I watch series with my wife, you can go onto your app, and it can pick up that it knows what I'm watching. But I always like asking these strange questions, like, how old was the person? How old was the person? And now we can start engaging with the bots, right? And the bot can say, oh, hey, Sarah Michelle Gellar was 20 years old when she started Buffy. And that's a very interesting thing. Now, you're right. A lot of you are thinking, hey, I can do this on Google. And you certainly can. However, as say Disney in this example, I want to engage with you. Okay. I want you to give me that question, right? And when you start to engage with me, it opens me up to other sorts of things. I always ask, how old is the person, who they're married to, or if they are no longer with us, how they passed away, what was their cause of death. But now something interesting starts to happen here. Okay. The bot can ask you questions back, and it can say, hey, we see you're watching this, and we see, you're kind of liking it because you keep watching all the episodes. Well, what exactly do you like about it? Okay. Is it the genre? Is it the actors? What is making the show sticky? They don't know this. Okay. So a lot of the, Netflix and Disney, they don't know why you like something. Okay. That's a big deal. Okay. Being able to ask this sort of question and get an answer in mass, okay, starts to really paint a picture of how people think and what exactly they like about it. Okay. And in this particular example, the person can respond and say, hey, I actually like stuff to do with vampires. I enjoy vampire series and fantasy series. Okay. But they also make mention that they like things that are funny and easygoing and not too scary. This is huge for media companies. Okay. Well, firstly, they know what to license and buy. Okay. So having people on your platform is a huge deal. So Netflix wants to beat Prime, wants to beat Disney. So making sure that they license the right stuff that people care for is a very big deal, especially if you're Netflix and you're creating your own content. Then you can start analyzing the insights from all these sorts of questions. You can start saying, well, fantasy stuff will do very well in this particular customer segment. And it's not something that they have to extrapolate on. It's something that people actually mentioned. Okay. It could be other silly things like, well, because asking you all these perhaps, frivolous sorts of questions around ages and who they're married to, it gets a conversation going. And that's what I care for. You're engaged, but you're engaged on my platform. Okay. Engagement is a commodity in this day and age. Everybody's fighting for your attention. And that's why, Facebook is valued the way it is valued, purely because of its engagement. Okay. Once I get to obviously know you better, it can advise the business. We know what series to buy. We know, where the ball's going to be going and then what to buy and purchase and license. It also helps us make better recommendations. So the next time it's Saturday night and we want to watch something, okay, we can start recommending things better to you based on what you told us you liked, not what we think you might like. Okay. So yeah, this will be a very, very big deal, very big deal for media companies. And yeah, the person can, start to respond. And you can get a little bit cheeky and say, oh, just thanks for the feedback. This will help us recommend content for you in the future. And then because you know where they are in the series and what they're watching, you can get a little bit cheeky and say, cool, you'll enjoy the next episode. Okay. And remember, it once again goes to that thing where if it's backed by text, you can start asking questions of it. Okay. Everything inside of this, you can start asking questions. But what I want to do is I want to open that channel of engagement and keep getting you asking us questions, but then I can ask questions back. And as a business, that's a very big deal. Okay. The next one will be news. BBC sent this push notification to me and I was just curious. And I gave it an open, and because I'm exceptionally lazy, I wasn't going to go read everything. And so, I see Poundland owner to take over 71 Wilco stores. But I was curious, what I really wanted to do was say, well, why did they go out of business? What's the story with this takeover? Apologies for that. So, why was there this takeover? What's the story over here? Can you bring me up to speed? That's a very big deal, especially for something that's been running for a long time. Okay, some stories run for a while, but it can start giving me insights into everything. The business was struggling. This is what they'd done. They'd put stores up in these areas. It wasn't quite working out. But I can keep asking questions. So like, why did Poundland buy them? What's the story? Why would Poundland want to do this? And then it can say, well, Poundland wants to do it for strategic reasons. Okay. There were some things about the article in the first sentence or two that I didn't understand, like about leases. I can ask questions about leases. Okay. Now something here starts to happen that is very, very, very important. Okay. The bot responds back and says, oh, you're engaged. You seem quite curious about this story. Would you like us to keep you updated on this? Now, this is a very big deal because once again, I want engagement, but I want retention. I want you to keep coming back, you know? So when the person responds to everything, they can say, yeah, sure, actually keep me updated. You know, this is a very big deal for me. This now starts to take news and starts to change the way and shape of it. It's not just this one way, you know, channel where they just write stuff and you read and off you kind of go. You know, you can start talking back to it and asking questions. The next one is once again, you know, audiobooks, any sort of audiobooks, particularly in the self-help sections, because why? It's backed by text. We can take audio, convert it to text, understand the body of stuff. And for anybody who's ever had to, you know, do sort of audiobooks, you know, there's sometimes you want to take notes, you want to, you know, look after, or you want to just, you know, take down the notes for a particular thing. And so you can say, hey, can you extract the last, you know, the main points of the last 10 minutes? And it can fairly easily do this now, you know, take audio, transcribe it, summarize it, save it for you. But something unique also starts to happen here, right? You can say, thank you so much, but can you like put this as part of my morning routine, or can you create a morning routine for me to practice? Okay, with a lot of these books, you'll read them, and because it's not incorporated in your life, it doesn't easily fit into there, it just falls off the side. But having something that reduces that friction or empowers you to, you know, have that sort of, you know, be put inside of your life is important because it might actually stick. Okay, and if it sticks, that means you're most likely to buy and you're most likely to come back. Okay, so that's a fairly big deal, but being able to engage with the content in this sort of level does become a fairly big deal for companies like Audible. A lot of people just write their notes now based on like handwritten notes based on what a book has to say. It could be a lot better. Okay, companies like Udemy, very popular learning platforms. But sometimes if you've ever done a Udemy course, it does get a little bit tricky. I'm busy learning this. I don't understand what the author meant. And you find yourself researching on the side. Over here, being able to talk to the content and to start asking questions on this content to try and get you to understand is an improved educational experience, period. And you can start to learn and understand things a lot quicker. What is a big deal here is that you can start picking up insights around the course that Udemy could probably sell to content creators and say, hey, you know, pay us for these insights around your course. We know how to make it better and we know how to make it stickier. Udemy is becoming very, very competitive amongst content creators, right? And so these sorts of insights of what people type and put in could be very useful to content creators. Okay, and finally, a big one. Education, you know, and it could be education all the way through from primary school through to your MBA. But being able to take text and read it and understand it, and this is today's homework. But if you want to like really retain that information, the best way to do it is to test yourself. Okay. But you can see, hey, can you test me on photosynthesis? Okay. And the bot can say, yeah, sure, no problem. Here you are. Here's a question, and it could do multiple choice and default to multiple choice. You can then obviously write back and say, look, you know, this multiple choice thing isn't working for me. Can you please, you know, let's do long form sorts of questions. And you can say, yes, of course. Well, here's a long form question. Type me up an answer. Okay. And, you know, what is the role of chlorophyll play in the process of photosynthesis? And the student could actually write, oh, it does this and this and this. And then it can mark at the same time. So I can ask a question, you know, it can answer it. And it can also say, well, hey, man, you've kind of got the right idea, but there's some things that you aren't getting quite right here. Okay. You know, what else can you remember and think of? Okay. And you can say, oh, it makes the plant green. And then once again, they can take that and mark that because, you know, of long-term memory inside of these large language models and how you make an application, you can take your past answer, your new answer, and then mark it again and say that's actually very good. Yes, you remembered these sorts of stuff. Okay. So being able to have this body of information to say to the large language model, hey, construct questions based on this to test the person on is a very big deal. I think for any parent on the call would absolutely love something like this. You know, for any teacher who's looking to convey certain concepts to their students, having this sort of platform and this sort of flexibility and the ability to ask and test students, you know, at scale and have it be marked was a huge deal. So this really is a very big deal. Okay, and frankly, I could go on all day. You could literally, it's now kept to your imagination. You can, have career bots that sit on your LinkedIn and look at jobs and recommend your next job for you. Or, if LinkedIn was smart, they could do that and then say, oh, take these LinkedIn courses to get you to the next step. You can have real estate bots that help manage some of your properties and go backwards and forwards and answer questions if you're renting things out. It can generate fitness plans for you. It can even generate very niche fitness plans for you around, I have sorts of, issues around knees, and so we don't recommend running. So it's very, very smart technology, very powerful technology, but the list goes on forever. So yeah, from a customer perspective, customers are really going to benefit from this stuff going forward. Okay, on to the next one. We have operational use cases. Okay, operational use cases. I'm more passionate about the customer stuff, but there is a lot of benefit from an operational perspective. Okay, the biggest one that comes out of this is having an internal company co-pilot. Okay, silly things like, once again, back to that policy thing. Well, what's the company's policy on A, B, C, D, E, F, G? No one is going to read this. Okay, you generally ask your boss. I think the boss asks someone else who knows the policy. Apologies. And there's this long back and forth, but now you can start asking these sorts of questions of the company. Every company has an internal query and help desk. So, oh, my password is I'm jammed, or I've been locked out of my account. How do I manage this? Or who do I get hold of? How do I submit claims? I think I've asked some people the same question at least 5 times now because I just can't remember it. There are some very interesting things that come out of this. Company history is a big one. Okay. Oh, well, what clients have we serviced that have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G before? Having that past knowledge and being able to query it really does become very useful in some cases. And you'll see in point 2, I'll elaborate on that, going, in the next point. Okay, employee onboarding, somebody new's just joined. What's the story with my project? What was done previously on this project? For anyone who's also started a new project and seen some very peculiar things, you're not quite sure what's happening there. You really start asking those sorts of questions. Industry understanding, if you're going to, banking or insurance, or frankly anything that's quite niche, and you're not from that industry, you're going to have a lot of questions around that. And then general just knowledge dissemination. Hey, company chatbot co-pilot, help me, understand A, B, C, D, E, F, G. From a project management bid office sort of perspective, this is huge. So being able to look at your past projects, say, hey, does new projects come in? What risks are there? Based on the past, how long did it take? What should we look out for? What compliance issues were there? What security issues were there? What systems did this project touch? Because they're fairly similar. That past knowledge and being able to mine that is a very, very big deal. The biggest caveat here is the maintenance of all of this. So making sure that all the systems and the text is updated and put somewhere and formatted correctly will be a Herculean task, but there is a lot of value if done properly, right? So yeah, internal company co-pilots will become a thing, and maybe the long-standing stuff around company histories, will take a lot of effort, but something like policy and internal queries are low-hanging fruit and is something that you could probably engage in. AI ways of work. So for the most part, there's all the new AI tools coming out, and some of them are very good. The one tool we spoke of at the beginning of this was ChatGPT, right? It's been an extremely helpful tool for many different reasons. But at the top, we have our GitHub Copilot, which is something the developers use. AWS has come out with Code Whisperer. And Microsoft's marketing video was very impressive on Microsoft Copilot. And it's a Copilot that'll sit in the tools that'll help you create presentations, summarize meetings. It really has some impressive sort of capabilities there. We're still waiting for it to be released. I think the marketing video sold more dreams than could probably deliver, but we'll find out hopefully soon. There's other tools that keep coming out. Robin AI is an AI co-pilot that helps you, lawyers write contracts and get more contracts out the door, and it streamlines that whole process. So it's like a ChatGPT, but niched towards contract writing. There's Copy AI that's come out that's also fairly good. Helps with the crafting of emails and copy for marketing. So yeah, very nice little useful tool. And there's a whole bunch of them. Dynamics 360 has also come out, the sales version within the Microsoft suite. The biggest thing here, particularly for knowledge-based businesses like consultancies, custom-made co-pilots will be a big thing. So if you offer services in mining and consultants in mining that do very, obscure niche things that the internet can't provide, provide me a risk assessment for this. Having past knowledge of that stored into co-pilots, or co-pilots being trained on this data is a very, very big deal. You could really, the quality of work that comes out is huge. You can shore up your assessments. You can be told, oh, on past projects, look out for these things on a risk assessment sort of thing. So from a consulting sort of business, frankly, it was in any other kind of business, having custom code pilots. And I suspect as time goes on, these will keep going, right? More people will develop, the Robin AI equivalents for mining and so on and so forth. So yeah, but for the most part, use cases tend to be niche, specific to companies. But once again, you have the insights, look into it, and start seeing like how you can start using ChatGPT or large language model technology, to start chipping away at these use cases. Okay, and so in summary, just some final words. Something that I've now experienced a lot and learned over the past couple of months is focus on value, not on hype. ROI, ROI, ROI. You are running a business. So make sure that whatever you're doing is always tied to a problem that the company is facing. Make sure that if you investing $10 in a tool, it's solving a $30 problem. So just always make sure that whatever you do is constantly aligned to the business itself. Don't get too caught up in the hype. If you are a senior technology leader, you could spend a lot of money fairly quickly on vanity projects. So be very aware that you're using this money to solve a problem. Whether you buying or building something, and I'll get to that shortly. Make sure that it's definitely something that moves the ball forward. Okay. Whether it's from an R&D perspective, that's also fine, but just always make sure that it's tied to ROI. Don't get caught up in the hype. There's a lot of that. Number two, have a good strategy in place. Some problems are significantly more difficult to solve than others, okay? And it's the trade-off between ROI and an investment needed to solve this problem, okay? So having a good strategy in place and knowing where to start and how to start, and what you should tackle on, is very important. And it's something that really needs to be in place before you embark on this sorts of journey. Even some of the things that I have showed you in these slides, from a retail perspective, are complicated problems to solve. For Amazon to put this bot into their platform, it will not be a trivial solve, but maybe you start off with a certain product segment first, and a certain group segment first. But slowly but surely have a good strategy and how you plan to use this technology to move you forward. The biggest thing you will have to do here is once you've got a good strategy in place, you're going to ask the question, should we build or should we buy? Okay. And the world is changing very quickly. I mean, from when ChatGPT dropped last year to where we are today, a lot more products have come out. The technologies themselves have changed, within reason. And so you should ask yourself, should we build or should we buy? And I'm of the opinion you build for competitive advantages and you buy for productivity. So sure, you can go create an internal bot that does all this policy question and answer, but understand, what does that cost look like? What does that maintenance cost? So there's the upfront cost of building it, then it's all these maintenance costs, then there's all these costs of keeping the content up to date to make sure that the bot is always accurate. There's always a cost involved. But bear in mind that, in the next 6 months, Microsoft will most likely release something that does it all for you, where you just put the files in a certain place, you click a few buttons and it pops up there, and they'll probably charge you for that, $5 to have this for your company. But that's a big deal. If you're investing millions into something that Microsoft might build, and it's something that's going to make you more productive, you've really got to start making this balancing act. Okay. If it's something that will give you a competitive advantage, now that's something different. Okay. That's probably going to be something very niche and something that even if Microsoft built, isn't good enough, okay, and you want something very specific for you to give you that edge over your competitors, okay? So remember, when you go down this journey, pick your use cases wisely. You know, is it a build? Is it a buy? And always remember, you build for competitive advantage, and you buy for productivity, okay? Like I mentioned before, it's the beginning stages. So start, start slow, but start looking at things, start taking the quick, small wins, and start implementing and playing with the technology as soon as possible. Okay. Understand what it means for you and your business. POC things first. Don't just go running into production. POC things first. There's hallucinations. The models do hallucinate. Make sure you've got a good system in place from end to end. You'll see a lot of things on the internet that just talks about the small little bit of a very large system. Understand the system implications of everything. POCs and production are not the same. So test your hypothesis and your edge cases, and then start looking to slowly move it into production. And finally, the biggest thing that a lot of people do not talk about is change management. Now, from a customer-facing sort of perspective, there could be change management from a user experience perspective, and breaking the chatbot stigma into more ask an AI and breaking that search sort of thing and getting people to prompt. But people pick that up fairly quickly, right? I mean, ChatGPT skyrocketed in user base, it's a couple 100 million, if I recall, in a short amount of time, right? So from a customer-facing perspective, I don't think there'll be too much of a big deal. But understand, from any internal perspectives, people, from our experiences now, will require change management. There's some very valid concerns around, will this take my job? What does this mean for me? It just did this thing that would have taken me 2 weeks, 5 minutes to do. And so it's very important to understand that people are squishy. They won't just adopt these tools just because. They won't just do stuff out of their busy day to take a tool. You will have to say, hey, this is the value it can add to your workflows, and so on and so forth. It will get better. There are always early adopters. There are always laggards. But for the most part, do not underestimate change management and its need when moving this or using this technology within an internal sort of perspective. Okay, and so finally, just final insights. If it exists, you can probably ask it for an answer through some sort of channel. The channel could be web, mobile, WhatsApp, Telegram. So long as you can ask the question, you can get an answer. Understand people that they have problems, they want solutions. They don't want to do too much work to get a solution solved, right? And then finally, with more information, we're just gonna really get to know our customers even better and get better insights. And then finally, the real hero of all of this is Kayla. She's one of our UI UX designers who helped me put this really good looking presentation together. Without her, it would have been some poorly drawn stick people and some fairly badly drawn pencil drawings, and so she helped bring life to a lot of this sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm very grateful for her. So thank you, Kayla. And then that's me, Roberto. Does anybody have any questions on their side?
Hey, Roberto, big well done. Guys, can we see some hearts, some hand clapping, some reactions there? I think Roberto did a very, very good job. Yeah, some people are amazed, Roberto. I don't know if you can see all the reactions.
No,
Roberto
I
can't
can't
see anything.
I
Okay,
can't see
cool.
anything.
Yeah, but that's fine. So we do have a question from Henry. Henry's asking, what are the privacy issues when using LLMs? And then he goes on to ask, should you allow customers to opt out of using it?
Oh, so that's a very good question. Privacy does become a big deal, and it's a give and take, right? I think one can opt out, but if you opt out, it'll probably be in its entirety. So it'll probably be something on a website that you just don't use. So much like a chatbot now, you can choose to use it or not. Okay, so that's the first thing. The person is always in control. In terms of privacy, I think it's a give and take. So as we all know now, we've used ChatGPT for free extensively with the knowledge that they will be using our data. But the consumer is always in charge. So whether they choose to engage in it or not is entirely up to them. So privacy is an important thing. I do think it's well said, before somebody starts using this product, it could be useful to say, or this interface, it's useful to say, hey, we will be using this sort of information. If you don't want to, give us any sensitive stuff, that's okay. You can, you can't. We won't share it with anybody else, or having some sort of response pop out initially to just make users more aware of what they're getting into is just it's a good thing to do. So it's well said. Yeah, it's a good but the person's always in control. It's not like Google, so to say. So yeah.
And then we've got, thanks for that, Roberto. We've got another question from Garth Clausen. Garth is asking, or he's saying rather, we are in the hospitality and gaming industry. What would you recommend as a start? Obviously strategy, but in terms of AI quick wins.
Hospitality and gaming. There's a lot to do there, all the way from engaging to people. So if I'm assuming hospitality, you're probably coming onto the website. There could be language barriers, so the models can, adapt to different languages. And it's tailoring that sort of experience, saying like, well, what do you want to do out of this trip, out of this visit, unpacking all of that. And then you could go all the way through to the nitty-gritty, saying, room preferences, what do you like, what do you want to do on the sort of holiday. You can recommend itineraries from start to finish. You can go all the way through to food experiences. If people really enjoy food and they're from Europe, and we want to give them an African flair sort of thing, or if they can also mention allergens, they're allergic to A, B, C, D, F, G. We can keep track of that. So that entire journey from start to finish can be really tailored. That's number one. And then in the micro communications around that, so if I know you're from a certain country, how I respond to you can be tailored towards people in that country. So it really, from a hospitality can really gain from this. Those sort of niche, hyper-personalized experiences and recommendations will be huge. Okay, and building a good experience, because that's what we're selling from start to finish. Okay, within a gaming sort of perspective, that's a good one. I've never given any thoughts to gaming. Probably how to do certain things. I've actually done that a lot. How do I get this in the game? How do I do that? Probably a bit of a hack and cheat, which is something, but people are asking that question, but it shows sort of engagement. What is maybe interesting around that is you could have certain levels of saying, oh, I need to do this, but the game could nudge you towards the right answer. Saying like, maybe it could be your quest guide. So you ask a question on your PlayStation microphone saying like, look, man, how do I do this? And then you could start dropping hints saying, oh, hey, man, have you tried thinking of this? Have you tried thinking of that? So we don't give you the full answer. We give you a partial answer. So I think gaming, it could be, because nobody, especially, I guess people like learn to, sometimes I remember back in the day with the PlayStations, you could go read the game manual, and it'd show you how to play the game, but nobody read those. But I do think like having a quest avatar that you could ask questions to that could nudge you into the right way. And you can maybe configure that saying, just give me the answer or guide me on the answer. I think that could be actually quite useful within a gaming sort of setting. So yeah. I would have to unpack that a lot more. There's a lot there, but there's a lot of potential, particularly in hospitality.
Yeah, so we are out of time, unfortunately. Oh, by the way, Roberto de Villiers mentioned NPC integration as a possibility in the gaming space. So yeah, maybe using that. But you did allude to that. But yeah, unfortunately, we are out of time, everyone. I see that some people do want to engage further. Garth, we're more than happy to definitely engage further with you. One of the questions that I had for Roberto was just around how DVT can assist organizations in formulating that strategy that they would need around this, right? As well as how we can help them to actually go about implementing some of the things that Roberto spoke about. So yeah, I mean, that's something we can certainly assist with. I mean, do reach out to us. We've got your contact details here. In fact, we will reach out to you. And then let's take the conversation a little bit further with you. Anyone else that would also like some assistance around these use cases, these insights, please do reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist you going forward. So everyone else, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining this talk today, Roberto. A special thank you to you for taking the time out to prepare, for sharing your knowledge, your experience. We really appreciate it. Well done. And Karen, thank you once again for always setting these up for us, making sure that they run smoothly. They're really insightful. And yeah, hopefully we'll see a lot of you, most of you, all of you at the next Insight session. Until then, have a good Thursday. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.